What's happening? Appreciate everybody that is tuning in. Before we get started, man, I'm using a new mic here tonight. If you hear any audio problems, please let me know. I got a backup here just in case something goes wonky with this one. But nonetheless, appreciate everybody that's tuned in. Want to thank our sponsors over at A Glass, 2 locations back into PD, 1 in Florence, 1 in Sumter. Take care of all your auto glass needs. They do replacement. They do repair. You can get yourself a free quote, myaglass.com. Always scrolling across the bottom of the screen, the website that is, longtime sponsor of this show. Always appreciate those guys. Got some visitors here with me in the upstate today. So if you hear any dogs, we got a couple of dogs in the house tonight, and one of them likes to yap at me. I haven't seen her in a while into the day, and she's been yapping at me a little bit. But got to look at a little bit of practice today. Not a lot. Didn't really let us see a whole lot. But the biggest thing that we got to see was the fact that Cade Klubnik was not throwing the football. He was basically just, taking mental reps. And when they went to work the quarterbacks actually throwing the ball, man, they had all the rest of them throwing at the same time, so you couldn't really get an idea of the pecking order or anything. I fully expect him to be fine. I do remember him banging his throwing hand off of a helmet in the South Carolina game. I'm assuming this is that. Dabo didn't mention it. We noticed it at practice that he wasn't throwing. Then after practice, Tyler Brown reveals he's kind of been dealing with the thumb, and they're just, basically called it precautionary. He didn't use that word, but that was the way I took it. Outside of that, the biggest takeaway from practice today was the amount of people taking part in practice. It did not look anything like a typical Clemson practice, man. If you've watched Dabo's presser today, he talked about them being without 27 scholarship players. You got the 5 portal guys, 5 guys that have announced intentions to enter the portal. Shelton Lewis did it a while back, but you've had 4 more since. So that's 5. All the guys that have been injured during the year, then the pro opt-outs, TJ Parker, Peter Woods, Antonio Williams, DeMonte Capehart. None of those guys were there. Avion Terrell, they're all opted out. Man, it just looked different. Colin Sadler is going to be out. And the little bit that we got to watch of the offensive line today, me and Will walked over there to kind of try and get an idea of who was taking the reps there, and it looked like Ronan O'Connell. We get to go back out there Wednesday and check it out one more time. But, outside of that, man, that's kind of the biggest takeaways. The basketball team plays South Carolina tomorrow night, the annual rivalry game. I hated that thing's in the middle of December, just after finals and right before, the Christmas, right before Christmas coming up, man. It always impacts the crowds, whether it's in Clemson or Columbia. It doesn't matter. Hey, they can't find a better place to put a different or find a better place on the schedule to put that game. I know they've worked hard at trying to do that and just haven't been able to do it. Outside of that, man, we can take it wherever you want to go. Penn State's dealing with some opt-outs of their own. They've had some big ones. They're starting defensive end, the running back who kind of their all-time leading rusher. He kind of took a little bit of a step back this year and split carries with another guy, Singleton. Singleton's going to be out. One of their starting defensive linemen is going to be out. He's opted out, and there's been a couple more, and I can't remember off the top of my head who they were. But so, it's not like Clemson's the only team dealing with opt-outs. But I doubt Penn State's going to be missing 27 scholarship players. Clemson's getting really thin along the offensive line. You were already out without Walker Parks. You're without Brayton Jacobs. Easton Ware got hurt before the season. That's a guy that probably could have helped at some point or another because they were high on him. And then you lose Sadler. It's just been one thing after the other with that offensive line. Adam Randall's a guy, I've always maintained I thought he'd play. He was out there practicing today. A couple of, players that people were worried about transfer, and TJ Moore, Gideon Davidson, David Azuliame, all out there practicing. I have a hard time believing their agents would be okay with them practicing and playing in a bowl game if they were planning to transfer. Never say never, but that's got to be a good sign for those guys and anybody else that you were worried about transferring. I think Dabo's comments today about the portal probably get a little attention, about not cutting deals. But again, Clemson's going to be active in the portal, man. It is what it is. If they're not going to be competitive next year. Are you going to have enough players available to even play in this ball game? Yeah, I think you'll have enough to play, man, but you're not going to have a lot of depth. You lost a couple of linebackers, depth guys. You still, and Wade Woodaz is out with an injury. Forgot about that. I mean, you'll still have Sammy and Jeremiah Alexander and Kobe McLeod, who played pretty well, in limited action this year. So you still have those three guys. You're kind of hurting on the back end with no Terrell, no Barnes. I know Barnes has been anything but spectacular this year, but man, that when you take both those guys out the lineup, it leaves you with some questions. We didn't ever make it over to the safeties today to really kind of see who was, working out over there. We only get a limited amount of time, but it kind of be interesting to see what the plan is there. But yeah, they'll have enough guys to play. Probably can't afford to lose anybody else, but they'll be able to play. I'm interpreting Dabo's portal comment to mean staff may talk to guys, but they won't bid or make offers until the official date. Is that a fair read? I don't know. I'm of the opinion he's not going to come out and tell you his plan no matter whatever it is. But there's a lot of ways you can do things without officially offering guys, until the portal opens on the 2nd. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to do things through back channels and agents and stuff. They know they got some holes to fill on that roster, and I'm just as confident now as I was last week, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago that they're gonna try and do what they can to hit the portal and fill some of those gaps. Are you still betting we get a good portal QB or mediocre backup, or are you thinking Cade will be back? I've never thought Cade would be back. This hearing that took place today, it's a little late in the game. They would have needed the judge to rule on that thing today. He did not. He kind of kicked the can down the road. No idea when he might rule on that thing, and these coaching staffs have to have their rosters in place. They need to know by the end of the month. So I just don't see that thing being done by then. I've never thought Cade would get another year that way. I mean, it would have been interesting to see what would happen had the judge ruled that way today, because I think if you're Cade, it's a no-brainer. You got to come back. That's kind of life-changing money, and you're not going to make it in the NFL next year. Not that kind of money. Even if you take a little bit of a pay cut from this year, still wouldn't make that kind of money in the NFL next year, and there's no guarantee you'd be in the NFL beyond next year. So, I mean, if he were to get the opportunity, I think he would have. To me, that's a no-brainer. But, yeah, I still think Clemson's going to target a portal quarterback, and I've never said anything about a mediocre backup. I do not see I don't even see the point in going that route. You either go get a guy that can be the starter, or you don't need anybody. You've got enough dudes already on the roster capable of being the backup next year. Anything that surprised me about Dabo's press conference today? Not can't say that there was. I did not off the top of my head. He didn't really get into anything that I was not prepared for. Kind of thought he might get asked about the coaching stuff, but he didn't. But that's about the only thing that was surprising to me. Not that I expected he would answer it, but I figured somebody at least asked, but nobody did. Don't be scaring people with you almost meeting Jesus Christ. Yeah, I can't. I got to be careful about how I joke on Facebook these days, I guess, man. I made a joke on Facebook the other day. I had about half a dozen people text me on my phone, not DM me through Facebook. I'm talking about people with my number texting me on my phone and asking me if everything's okay. I was just cracking wise. I thought it was funny. Oh, not everybody else did. It's not that well received by some people. Thoughts on today's Dabo quote that Clemson would not spend any cash in the portal? Actually, that's not what he said. You can't do work in the portal and not spend money. You can't recruit and not spend money. Clemson, they had more than $20 million invested in this roster on this current team. I would expect it to be between 20 and 25 million next year. They are going to pay the guys they go after, or any guys they land in the portal, they're getting paid. What he was trying to say was he's not going to cut deals and agree to deals before the portal even opens. That's all that was, man. He's always been adamant that Clemson follow the rules. I mean, again, like I said earlier, man, he's not going to come out and tell you, what the plan or the philosophy is going to be. He's just going to tell you that they're not going to, finalize any deals before the portal even opens. But man, there are different ways you can go about recruiting guys that you like all these guys you see and make announcements that they're planning to enter the portal. They can't even officially enter to January 2nd. It doesn't open to the 2nd. If I'm not mistaken, even graduates can't enter to the 2nd anymore. So none of these deals can officially get done before then anyways. There'll be a lot of guys that already had deals done before then. And I fully believe that Clemson will be doing their due diligence in the portal, while they're prepping for the Pinstripe Bowl. They might not officially, agree to terms with a guy, or there's definitely not going to be anything signed before the portal opens. To me, that's all that was. Will Helt be back next year? I fully expect Helt to be back. Otherwise, I think he would have opted out by now. Yeah. That's just me. I've kind of heard whispers that he's coming back, so all that would kind of line up. Should be used to it. Still surprised when fans just jump all over Chef. No, he's a bad guy he's a bad guy for moving on. I have not seen any of the – man, I just got back here after 6 o'clock, so I haven't really seen any of the online chatter about him opting out of a bowl game he wasn't going to be, probably involved in anyways. To me, that's the smart play. If you're going to get back into basketball, you might as well go ahead and jump in with both feet and not put it off any longer. To me, there was nothing wrong with giving him the opportunity. I never thought it was going to amount to much of anything. He had just been out of football too long, didn't join the team till the summer right before fall camp. Just doesn't give him a whole lot of time to acclimate and get up to speed. And, they tried to, manufacture a couple of storyline moments for him this season, and it just didn't work out for him. But no harm, no foul, man. It's not like he was stealing a roster spot from somebody else or anything like that, no matter how many people shout that from the mountaintops online. They had an extra spot for him. They brought him in. If they didn't, they wouldn't have. It wasn't going to go to anybody else. Brown, Moore, starting wide receivers, I'm assuming. And, Cole Turner was in yellow today too, so I would imagine it'll be Brown, Moore, and, Smith, or a combination of Smith and Turner, assuming Turner's back. Smith's kind of been a little bit on the outside looking in of late. He's not played well the last couple of games when he's had his opportunities. Hey, Watford. I did not even see Watford today. Doesn't mean he wasn't out there, but there were a bunch of guys that we were told that if they weren't out there, they might be out with the flu, because the flu's kind of been making the rounds through the facility. But I personally didn't see Watford. So, but I mean, as far as him playing in the bowl game, I would imagine he would be, at the back of the pecking order. Clemson speaking with the agent of a portal who is a player. Is Clemson speaking with an agent of a player who has announced they are entering the portal, fall within the rules of not tampering? Dabo was emphatic they will follow the rules. It kind of falls back on what I was saying earlier about there's ways to do things without technically breaking the rules. There are ways to do things through back channels and through agents. I based on just some things that I've heard, I fully believe that Clemson's already started doing their due diligence on some of these guys. They might not be negotiating with them per se, but I do believe that they have already at least started the process of identifying guys. And man, we all know that the portal recruiting is like speed dating, man. You better be prepared when that thing opens. And I think they're doing what they need to do to be prepared when it does. I mean, not everybody believes that. A lot of people won't. A lot of people don't believe Dabo's even gonna really hit the portal this year, And I understand that part of it too. He's not really given, he's I guess, until he kind of dives in head first, there's going to be some people that are skeptical, and I totally get it. We'll see if they follow through and do what, they've acted like they're going to do. Let's put it that way, I guess. Because everybody that I talk to fully believes they're gonna go in hard this year. But if you wait until the portal opens on the 2nd and you haven't done any work at all, just because you think it might be tampering, you're not going to land anybody. or the guys you do land, man, let's just say you're putting yourself behind the 8 ball if you do that. And I don't buy for 1 second that that's what's going to happen. But to answer your question, I kind of got off in the weeds there. I mean, I think there are things you can do to where it's not, technically tampering. And if a guy's already, announced his intention to enter the portal, if you kind of, maybe have a back channel conversation with an agent, no, I don't think that's tampering. The guy's already made it known he's not coming back. To me, tampering is you travel up to city. Let's just say you travel to a city up north and play a game against them in November. And, as you're walking off the field, a couple of their support staffers come up to your teammates and say, hey, we're looking to fill holes at your position. Call me. That, to me, that's tampering. But that's just me. It's not that anybody's enforcing those rules anyways. Good. Oh, looks like we're having some technical difficulties here. There we go. There it is. Is Riley staying or going? I do not expect Riley to be back next year. I mean, I get it. People are getting impatient. I was actually wrong. I thought Riley was signed through next year, but man, he's got 2 more years on his deal. That puts his buyout at over $3 million. That is why he's been given every opportunity to find another job somewhere else. If you don't have to fire him, you don't have to, pay that buyout money. Although if he were to find another job after getting fired, Clemson would have to just pay the difference. There are a lot of reasons for allowing him to try and find another gig somewhere else rather than just outright firing him. But yeah, I do not expect Riley to be back next year, and if he is, I'll eat that crow. I've kind of been hearing that for weeks and weeks now. But what's true today may not be true tomorrow. There's a lot of things that can change. It's seen crazier things happen in coaching. I think Clemson's coaching staff is going to look much different next year than it did this year. I'm assuming you're saying Lagway should be a target, and my question would be why. You've got several talented, young, inexperienced quarterbacks on your roster already. Why add another one who's not very proven outside of proving he's capable of throwing a lot of interceptions? To me, if you go get a quarterback out of the portal, you need an upperclassman, a guy who's kind of been there, done that, and kind of can bridge the gap to maybe a Denson or a Hughley or a Reynolds or even, who knows, maybe even a Mazzina a year from now. I lean towards thinking it'll be one of the other guys. But to me, that's not Lagway. I get it. I mean, I understand the fascination with them since, it seemed like Clemson was so close to landing him out of high school. But he's still young and things could change. But man, he's been a bust so far. Reading, golly, I forgot where I read it earlier. I forgot who put it out, but one of those national sites put it out. He kind of wanted to stay at Florida. And, they asked him a couple of tough questions, and he didn't like it, and that's kind of what precipitated the move into the portal. To me, if you're Clemson and you're going after a quarterback, you need somebody established, and I don't think Lagway's that. Did you see more of Denson at practice? Possible improvement in his throwing mechanics? He looks the same throwing the ball to me. It's some of that stuff's gonna be, like slight that you're not gonna always notice from 1 week to the next, or 2 weeks from the next, or even 3 weeks from the next. He still has an elongated motion. To me, man, it's probably where a lot of the work needs to be done is with his footwork. But the ball still comes out of his hand kind of wobbly sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't. It doesn't have. I just don't know that he's there with the arm strength. Some guys, he's never going to have elite level arm strength. His mechanics can help some with that. I still think Denson's probably a year away. I believe we will be competitive because of the portal at a lot of positions. What positions have you heard most frequently? Safety and defensive end. But just sitting on the outside looking in, man, you need DBs. You've already lost, pretty much all your linebacker depth. So you might need something there. If you lose another running back, you might need, to throw a veteran in there with those young guys. I think you need 1 or 2 offensive linemen to bridge the gap to those young guys. I've been pretty open about needing a quarterback. I mean, there's a lot of positions, man, that could benefit from being addressed. Somewhat unknown OC situation probably doesn't help the case to bring a high caliber QB here. Again, I would just say this, man, once they, decide, if let's just say they decide to go after a quarterback, man, when they decide to go after him, the guy's going to know what the plan is. Just because everybody doesn't know publicly, that doesn't mean they don't already know behind closed doors. Even if, Dabo couldn't tell the guy exactly who the offensive coordinator is going to be, he absolutely knows what the scheme's going to be. And as far as the receivers go, you can best bet they know what the plan is. And I'm not saying it's receivers, but I know of a couple of players who were adamant they weren't coming back if Riley was coming back. I guess it's possible they could have changed their mind, but those guys are still there. Yeah, I don't know if Tristan Smith's going to get another year. He should, because he spent a year at JUCO, and all these other guys got their JUCO year back. But that is, he tweeted out last night he was kind of keeping an eye on that court case. But they have, from my understanding, tried to get a waiver. No word back on it last I heard. Jay Haynes was in yellow today, which means he is injured. Just the new front office working to re-sign the roster right now or not. Yeah, that's already been in motion since the end of the regular season. Seems like the current portal market is going to be flooded with QBs. It would be interesting to see how it all exactly. There's going to be no shortage of options, man. No shortage of options, and it's still more than 2 weeks to go until January 2nd. Is it waiting on a coach a bad thing too? Shane Beamer already got his offensive coordinator. I am aware we won't have any good coaches left to pick up. What? Who says you have to fire? Or let's say you're looking for a new offensive coordinator. You don't have to go get one from one of these staffs that just got fired. Say like Penn State cleaned house up there, or Ole Miss who some of their assistants left, or Florida who's a bunch of their assistants left. You can go pluck someone from a guy that's been established for a few years, just like they did with Garrett Riley. Even though he'd only been at TCU 1 year, but I mean, you can go pluck someone from anywhere. So I mean, I don't really think that hurts you all that much. To me, the thing with that, it might hurt you the most with, and I think there are ways to even mitigate this is maybe when you're trying to recruit the portal. But with 2 years left on his deal, man, that puts his, Riley's buyout would be over $3 million. That's something they're going to try to avoid having to pay. And comparing it to Beamer's, that's apples and oranges. Beamer fired his mid-season, and guarantee you the buyout wasn't what Riley's is. And it still took him weeks to hire the next guy. Do you think there's anything real about Michigan reaching out to Dabo during their coaching search? Do I think he would entertain that? I don't know if there's anything real about that. I have not heard a peep about that. Has it been written anywhere? Somebody tried to link him to that job. That place is a dumpster fire right now, man. 2 back-to-back scandals. I'd have a hard time seeing Dabo even entertain that if he got that call. Amazing how fast college football fans in general shifted from college brains to some mix of pro fantasy video games, wanting dozens of players rotated, spending imaginary money. I can tell you who I think spending imaginary money, and that's North Carolina. I know this is not what you're talking about, man, but if you look at the guys in their recruiting class, man, to me, that thing there, man, that's going to end badly. I don't see any scenario in which they are not promising money to those guys they do not have. That thing's going to end so badly up there. Of the 4-star receiver signees, who would you consider an early contributor? Naheem Burrows. I think he'll be hard to keep off the field. All 3 of those guys has got legit speed. Burrows and Salmon have like elite level track speed. Salmon might even be a little bit faster than Burrows. He's been timed faster than Burrows. But Burrows is a guy that you can put in, that can help you in the return game. With Antonio leaving, he can help you in the slot. He's a prototypical slot guy. I think he's going to be hard to keep off the field. I mean, he's just a playmaker. Yeah, Clemson's not going after Darian Mensah. Number one, he signed a 2-year deal. He's not leaving Duke. Number two, that deal's for like $4 million a year. I don't see Clemson paying a quarterback $4 million. I would take the Harvard kid at QB if they were to take a QB. Jaden Craig. My thoughts on the playoff. Yeah, I talked about this last week. You know, I still get tickled at Notre Dame taking their ball and going home, man. They probably should be in, but man, their anger is directed at the wrong place. Their beef shouldn't be with Alabama. It should be with the committee, making it a point to compare them to Miami instead of Alabama. That should be their issue, not the ACC. Pumping one of their teams to get in because Notre Dame sure wasn't gonna share any of that playoff revenue with the ACC had they gotten in. It's now they've got it. It comes out that all they got to do is be in the top 12 to get in next year. I mean, man, if I'm an AD at one of these schools, man, I am not. I'm probably not interested in playing Notre Dame. And Clemson's already locked in to play on 12-year deal starting in 27. But if I'm an AD and knowing what I know now, I don't want to do anything to help them. Am I the only person that's excited by what we saw from Vizina in his lone start? His confidence, touch, and anticipation on the deep ball was not bad. He just need reps. I don't know. I can't answer that. I've not been overly impressed with what I've seen from Vizina this year. He played well against SMU for 3 quarters. He did not look very good in the first quarter. I also want to remind everybody that was against one of the worst pass defenses in the country. When he got opportunities against Boston College, North Carolina, even Furman, it was a totally different looking Vizina than what we saw in those 3 quarters. I think if Clemson, goes 10-2 this year and makes the playoff again, even if you get bounced in the first round, maybe you can go in to the offseason and sell this fan base on the potential of Chris Vizina next year. But with the way this season played out and just, failing to meet the expectations by such a wide margin, I don't know that you can do that, man. I think next year might be the biggest year in Dabo's career. And if you're him, do you want to pin that on an unknown at quarterback? I just don't know that he will. Again, I still believe Clemson's going to target a quarterback in the portal. I have reasons for saying that. I might end up being totally wrong on that deal. Like I said earlier, what's true today might not be true tomorrow. But when you look at Clemson's schedule next year and what they've got coming back at every other position as of right now, yeah, I don't get excited thinking about Vizina being the starting quarterback. And I hate to say that because I hate to knock on kids, and that feels like I'm knocking on him. I think you have to upgrade there. Why is the linebacker room leaving? Allen Jr. and Ben Boulware lost the room. Number one, Allen Jr. doesn't really have anything to do with the linebackers. That's Boulware and Tom Allen. Thomas Allen, not a junior, by the way, just Thomas Allen. He's working with the DBs. I don't think it has anything to do with the coaches. Not one iota. I think you're seeing guys that know they are probably not looking at getting any opportunities at Clemson next year. You've got Sammy Brown coming back. You've got Jeremiah Alexander coming back. You've got the first guy off the bench in Kobe, one of the You got the first guy off the bench at the wheel in McLeod coming back. I think he was the first guy off the bench at the wheel, if I'm remembering right. Anyways, I think you got Creighton, who is just buried on the depth chart, wanting a better opportunity. I think you got Jamal Alexander, same thing. And I think if you go back and look at the time when Alexander was being recruited to Clemson, they played a different brand of defense. They used 3 linebackers. They relied on a Sam. They don't do that anymore. And I don't know that Alexander, he's about 220 pounds. Is that the kind of size you want at Will? Certainly not the kind you want at Mike. I think he would probably fit in well in a scheme that ran 3 linebackers and utilized the Sam. He's also the guy that gave up the onside kick, right after being told, hey, be on the lookout for the onside kick. So I think the writing was kind of on the wall there when they came out and said he was going to redshirt after that. But to answer your question, I don't think it has anything to do with the coaching staff. Yeah, I can't comment on if I think Clemson's going to target this portal guy or that portal guy. I have really no idea at this point. It's just too early to say just yet, and I have no idea who the next OC might be. So let me just go ahead and get that out there right now. I can just say this. I do know that there was at least some interest in Faulkner. How much? I don't know. Could have been they just wanted to talk to him. I don't know. I can't say he was, like the top choice or anything like that. Don't even just know that there was at least a little interest there. And that's, from my understanding, part of the reason why Florida moved so fast. I said 1 or 2. I don't mean all of them. I know of a couple that had indicated they weren't interested in coming back if Riley was coming back. And that doesn't mean that they couldn't have been talked out of that. I mean, I was told that weeks ago. Again, what's true today might not be true tomorrow. Yes, I've actually already talked about this. I would just say I'll tell you the same thing I said, whoever mentioned it the last time. I would just say why. He's not the profile I think you need to target if you're in Clemson's shoes. He has failed miserably to live up to the high expectations in place when he got to Florida out of high school. The way this thing played out, it's kind of, it kind of sounds like he might have been nudged towards the portal, which, if that's the case, that gives you an indication of what the new coaching staff thinks. The guy throws a ton of interceptions. I think if you're a Clemson and you're going to get a quarterback, you need a veteran, not an underclassman. You need a veteran that is already established and proven on the field that he can play at a high level. And to me, that Lagway does not fit that criteria. Zaire Patterson, he stayed hurt for a lot of, before this year, man, he was hurt a pretty good bit, far more often than he wasn't. And it just put him so far behind. I have a feeling TJ Moore is hitting the portal. Any insight? I believe if TJ Moore was planning to hit the portal, he would not be playing in the bowl game. I don't think his agent would allow that. Last I looked, Penn State had like 4 opt outs. Couple, at least 2 of them were starters. Chances with Marquis Bryant, slim and none, somewhere between that. Somewhere in between slim and none, anyway. I remember talking to Marquis not long before he picked up his offer and called Clemson his dream school. That right there tells you all you need to know. Do you think a true freshman will start on the O line from this recruiting class? I would lean against that. I mean, I can't say for sure one way or the other. It's really hard to do that. It's why we don't see it happen a whole lot. We saw it with Blake Miller. We saw Braden Jacobs eventually starting. Most that was more about injury. I would, I would have liked to have seen what happened with Jacobs had everybody stayed healthy. Um, if he would have ended up cracking the starting 5, I lean towards thinking no. Um, I think that is a fantastic group of offensive linemen. There's 6 of them. 5 of them are 4 stars. Braden Wilmus is the only one that's a 3-star, and the kid's 6'8". He's going to need some weight before he's ready, though, man. But I think Carter Scruggs is going to be a stud. I think Leo Delaney is going to be a stud. He probably needs a little bit of weight too. Golly, I think Chance Barkley has a shot at being a special player. And there's one more, and I'm forgetting who it is. Translates to a guard center at the next level. And I just can't think of his name off the top of my head that I think is going to be really good too. But my preference would be to go get my preference would be to go get 2 offensive linemen from the portal and kind of bridge the gap to those young guys. Juju Preston, I saw him returning punt, working with punt return today. Man, he's so little. He's put on a little bit of bulk since he's gotten here. I don't know. I guess anything's possible. I would lean towards thinking probably not. Maybe if they wanted to put him at punt return, but he was at the back of the line in the reps today. It was Tristan Smith was actually working there with Tyler Brown. I also have inside information that USF will be pursuing TJ Moore strongly. So there have been a lot of teams pursuing TJ Moore strongly. If TJ Moore were to leave, it ain't going to be the USF. Woodaz has to go pro. He's out of eligibility. Strongly disagree with this. Think we're going to find that the QBs we want cost more than they want to pay, and the QBs we can afford are only guys that will compete with who we already have. There aren't that many good QBs, man. You need to go back and take a look at some of the quarterbacks that are in the portal already, or if that have announced plans to enter the portal when it opens. There are going to be a lot of options. There was no decision today. It was kicked down the road. The judge took it under advisement. And going back to this last thing about not being able to afford, if Cade Klubnik's making in the neighborhood of $3 million, what makes you think they can't afford a quarterback? I can't wrap my head around that thinking. No, Guthrie's not the guy I was thinking of. Guthrie projects more of a tackle. He's like 6'7". Even though I think he's going to be a good one too. That's a two-way guy. He plays basketball, but he's not an early enrollee either. What about Jordan Young flipping back from Michigan after the scat? I don't as Young even see entering the portal. Take more than a flip. He's been there for a year already. I also doubt, after some of the things he said, I was never very high on Jordan Young. Anyways, I think you can do better. Miami or Texas A&M, 11 a.m. Oh, give me Texas A&M. Who projects as the guys starting center? I would say so. And my hope would be Gavin Blanchard could beat him out. I think DJ is exactly the type of QB in person Clemson would target. Strongly disagree. Remember you saying we would never play Randall at running back? That worked out okay. I don't remember what I said about Randall. I do remember not being very high on the idea at the time. Yeah, I'm not always right, but I feel pretty confident about being right about the Lagway thing. This thing goes deeper than just who he is as a person. If he couldn't even answer the questions he was asked by the coaching staff at Florida, when they had their meetings with him this week, man, I don't know, man. If they gave him a nudge out the door, that does not speak well. Tells you kind of what they thought of him. And Clemson needs an established guy. They've already got a guy with potential in Denson. They've already got a guy with potential in Tate Reynolds coming in. They've already got another guy with huge potential in Kareem Hughley committed. You don't need another potential guy. What you need is an established guy. Any thoughts on doing away with conference champ? Oh, those things are going away. You can bank on that. I would expect something like this. On that day, instead of a conference championship game, you get 2 play-in games. The outright winner of the conference in the regular season gets an automatic bid. And then the next 4 teams play-in games on that Saturday. Winners advance to the playoff. Something in that regard. I know that was being discussed by at least one power conference as far back as a year ago. They can push the decision down the road. He's the judge. He can push it down the road as far as he wants. But if you're asking, due to players on the team right now and decisions they'd have to make, Clemson would have to know those decisions before the end of the month. So those players are not going to have any more eligibility unless the judge somehow miraculously comes back in the next week and says, "Hey, I decided to give them all the fifth year." So, guys like Klubnik and Woodaz and Randall, they're not getting extra years, it doesn't look like. The player that gets drafted the highest, Peter Woods. Yeah, again, I'm not even venturing to guess who Clemson might target, at certain positions or any positions in the portal. Man, that's nothing but a crapshoot. I'm not venturing to guess at who the next OC might be. While I feel pretty confident there's going to be one next year, I want to see that move made officially, which I don't expect to happen after the bowl game. Pete Thamel just announced that Will Hill well, he's a little late on that one. Didn't Dabo talk about that today? I mean, the guy's been if he's planning to go into draft, I don't know why he'd been out there on the practice field the last 4 days. What round would Randall get? Day 3, probably. I mean, it'd been nice to see them make that move a year earlier. He's the one that could have really benefited from, the judge giving everybody an extra year of eligibility. Let him play running back one more year. Do I think Spiller's? I'm just saying, I think there will be changes to the coaching staff, man. That's it. We'll see what happens, which ones they are, and what happens with it. I think he is a fine quarterback. Look at there. It's already been an hour. All right. I appreciate everybody that has tuned in here tonight. I want to thank our sponsor over at A-Glass, 2 locations in the PDE, 1 in Florence, 1 in Sumter. Take care of all your auto glass needs. They do replacement, repair. Get yourself a free quote today, myaglass.com. Right back out here, or right back at it here next Monday night. Don't forget Clemson in South Carolina. The annual rivalry basketball game on the hardwood tomorrow. South Carolina has yet to beat a team. If I'm remembering right, I don't think they have a win over it. Wait a minute. Let me make sure I'm going to say that right before I make a fool of myself. It's one thing to brain fart on something. It's another thing to just say it outright wrong. Let's see. Okay. They have not beaten a team that is ranked either in quad 1, quad 2, or quad 3. They are 7-0 against quad 4 teams, 0-1 against quad 1, 0-2 against quad 2, not played a quad 3 team. They are ranked number 116 in the net. Clemson's number 30 in the net. They're 1-2 against quad 1 schools, 5-0 quad 4, 2-0 quad 3, 0-1 quad 2. One thing they are is battle tested. We'll see if that helps them out, because these games tend to go down to the wire, no matter which team's better, no matter if there's a big gap between the two. So I would expect this one to go down to the wire too. Tip off 7 p.m. tomorrow night. Who all is going with Coach Gross? We know Drew Sweeney's going. Paul Tyson's going. I think Brendan Thomas going. Andrew Zhao maybe is going. Might be one more. We thought Mickey Kahn was going to go, but it turns out that's not happening. Those are the ones I can remember off the top of my head. They're all going to stay through the bowl game. You know, all the coaches were out there today. Every one of them. We expect them all to stay through the bowl game. And with that, I am going to bid you farewell. Right back at it, 7 p.m. next Monday night from my house. We'll see y'all then.